to another episode of Control Alt Access. It's an accessibility in video games focused video and audio podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Laura. I go by Laura K. Buzz on the internet, and I'm here as ever with my lovely co-host Arevya. Hello.
Hi!
How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I'm done with like the big bulk of my this needs to be done before summer can really start, and it feels so good.
Yeah.
I'm done with it. It's been so much fun. I've been traveling a lot, so yeah.
I am similar. My body has finally gone, oh, we're not in the midst of all the chaotic summer work. Oh, slow down.
Yeah.
You can breathe again now. I've been falling asleep in the early afternoon, and that is a sign that, like, oh yeah, I was working myself a little hard, but it's good now. Summer has arrived.
No, it's summer arrived, and that's good though. I have it's been really fun though, because I did a new event of those I've talked about before, where I travel. I have a talk together with other disability advocates in Norway. And accessibility advocates, and then we have a talk for people, and then we showcase different games and let people play games with us. And it was so much fun. I played a game with a kid who hadn't, because he had cerebral palsy, hadn't been able to play games before due to his cerebral palsy was so severe that he couldn't use his arm. But me and the kid and his mom figured out that, hey, but we can have buttons on top with like where your wheelchair like headrest is. We can do that. And the mom was just like, we can. And I was just like, yes, we can. So we played the PlayStation, like the default PlayStation game together. And it was really, really fun. The kid was so happy. And mom told that this was the first time ever he's been able to play games.
Yay!
Yes, and it just like, and she was just like, I did not know this was a possibility, and she was also, I don't know games, and I was just like, hey, this is a perfect opportunity for you and the kid to like learn together, and she was just like, yes, because you can now play together. So it was really, really cool.
That's so good to hear. That's lovely. Hooray!
Hooray!
Good uplifting stuff.
Yes.
Well, while we're talking about you and stuff you've been up to, do you want to talk about stuff you've been playing this last couple of weeks?
Yes, I have had a need due to like traveling so much. I had to need to like chill games. So we're still on Palia on stream. Palia is going hard on the stream front, but I have been playing Supermarket Simulator.
Tell me about Supermarket Simulator.
It's an early access. It is what it is. You have a supermarket. You order wares, you put it on the shelf, you open your store, and you take payment, and then you get more money, and then you can hire somebody to sit at the till, or you can hire somebody to restock, and that's it. It's the weirdest concept ever. I feel like, my job, when people say like, oh, you're just a streamer and a content creator, get a real job, and I'm just like, I got myself a real job. I did Supermarket Simulator.
I've seen people streaming this game, and I've not felt the urge to pick it up because I did a supermarket job and it was not fun. And I'm like, I'm sure that like the video game version's very therapeutic. I just have too much supermarket trauma.
Oh yeah. Oof. Like and the best part about this game, the customers doesn't talk.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful.
The only thing they sometimes say is that pops up the box and saying, this is too expensive for me to buy. Or they say, I couldn't find the orange juice. And that's it. They don't do anything else, and they fix everything, and nobody makes a spill. So I'm just like, I'm happy.
Okay, they only talk if there's something practical you can actually do about their situation. Oh.
Yes. So no, it's actually been, I needed something mundane to just like chill and just get my like, everything in order and just relax. And it's been good to do that, which is also why the other game I've been playing a lot is Vampire Survivor.
Ooh.
And Vampire Survivor, I don't know what the category is called of those kind of games, but you are a protagonist. You can move around with your arrow keys, and then you automatically, he uses his weapons. So, and then monsters just compiling up on the board, and it's just about to like see how long you can survive. And that's it.
And each of the weapons has, like, a specific attack pattern.
Yes.
So, like, the whip attacks to your left and right, so you've got to make sure the enemies are to the left or right of you. Or maybe, like, the garlic does a circle all around you, but it's not as strong. and it's about positioning yourself so that when the attack automatically happens on a set timer, the enemy is in position when the attack happens.
Yeah, and it's just been, again, it's like sort of not too stressful game so that it piles on everything else I've done, but enough to be like, yeah, now I can like have fun and just like chill. And I have been impressed because I hadn't played Vampire Survivor before on how good that game is on progressing. Because it starts really small game, not a lot of things you can do, and then every time you are done with a round and you start over, something new has popped up, which I am impressed about.
Yeah, that game's unlock progression system does a great job of constantly feeling like there's new stuff to try. Yeah. It is a great game for, I don't want to think too hard about what I'm doing, but there's constantly something new that'll be a new little source of dopamine that does something slightly different, and slightly more things explode and die when they get close to me, and I feel a little bit more overpowered each time.
Yeah, and if anybody is watching on video now, you can see that I have a hand splinter on because I played it so much yesterday that now my thumb hurts.
Yeah, it's a real addictive one.
It is.
It's one that I've really appreciated being able to play on other platforms as well. Like it's on mobile and it works really well one-handed on. Yeah, it works really well one-handed on touchscreen because it's just move your thumb to be like a joystick to like pick your direction and tap the upgrades you want.
I'm really happy to hear that because I'm going to TwitchCon this weekend, so there will be a lot of airport sitting and plane flying. So.
It's been my default game for that kind of, I don't have a lot of time, and I don't want to get too engrossed in something, but I want something I can just pull out my phone and be doing.
And I'm wondering if it would work on your Steam Deck as well.
It works on Steam Deck as well. It runs on pretty much everything, which is nice.
There we go.
It's on Switch, it's on Steam Deck, it's on mobile.
Awesome.
Also, nice thing about the mobile version, it is completely free, with... like, not obtrusive ads. Like, the only monetization of the mobile version is if you lose a run, you can choose to, if you want to, watch an ad to get an extra revive, but you never have to. It never forcibly puts an ad in front of you, and I really appreciate that out of a good mobile game.
Yeah, that is, if it's going to be free, we know there needs to be something in there, so that is at least something.
It's at least in your control of, like, are you okay with being advertised to make us money? Like, it's up to you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And the last thing I've done is that finally my review of the Byowave controller is out. And I'm so happy with it. It's so good.
I'm so proud of that video. You've done such a good job with it. And
thank you.
Everyone, I'm not saying pause this to go watch that video, but pause this, go watch Arevya's video if you haven't yet. It's great.
Thank you. It was lovely. It was lovely being able to make it. It was lovely to, like, I can't wait to continue making content. And that is like the hardest thing because now I'm so inspired and all I want to do is like continue making stuff and then just like, no, you need to wait 6 months.
we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, but I understand in as much as I felt the same way about the PlayStation Access controller when I got to preview that, and then had to not take it with me and go 4 months from now you can try it again.
Yeah.
Like, no, now.
I want it now. No, but I was a wonder. People have been really, really nice with the comments on that video, and in general, it's just been nice. I'm just so happy. But Laura, what have you done the last 2 weeks? We have been away.
So I've been playing a bunch of little demos for things, mainly because Summer Games Fest happened and it's been a good excuse to check out a lot of like small things. So a lot of these I'm not going to have a huge amount to say about, but I will, I've got a little bit to talk about. So things I've played. I played a demo for a game that's, I think it's out in August, I'm very excited for, called Thank Goodness You're Here, which is a 2D cartoonish, it's sort of like a point-and-click adventure game, where you are playing this tiny little yellow man in a British village, trying to sort out people's very silly problems. And it might be something like, oh, this person saw a penny down a drain and he got his arm stuck, so you go to the bakery to try and find some butter to get his arm unstuck, but the bakery's not open because they need a locksmith, so you go to the pub, and then you've got to, like, activate all the beer barrels so that the man can get his pint so that he'll go unlock the bakery, and then person eventually gets their arm out of the thing. But it's all very silly, very, very British. There's a lot of humor in it that is... I streamed the demo for this, and there were a lot of things that Americans watching the stream were just like, I have no idea what this means. And I'm like, that's perfect. I want this to be a little inscrutable to you. That feels right for me.
Yeah.
I want you to have to wonder what a crest sani is.
As we talked about a million times before, there is something special about when a game makes it like they deep dive into a culture. It's just fun.
Yeah, it's never going to be... None of the stuff in there that's cultural references is going to stop you from being able to enjoy the game. No. It's just going to be, I don't understand what that in the background means, and someone British is going to be like, oh, I see what you're doing there. But my favourite thing about this game is there is a button you can use to do a little slap. So you can just run around town slapping people on the bottom, just be like, pop, 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 pop. And like no one seems bothered that you're just a tiny little person running around hitting people on the bottom to get their attention. Very silly. I've enjoyed what I've seen of it so far.
I like the drawing style. The like flowers in the game reminds me of the like something out of Cuphead. Even though the drawing style of the rest is not that, but like it still has this like really cartoonish, really stylish, but 100% you see this is drawn, and I like that.
Yeah, it's got a sense of humor that reminds me of like Aardman's animations. You're sort of the people that make Wallace and Gromit. It's that sort of. It's got that British comedy feel to it. Other than that, I played a demo for What the Car, which is a game from the people that made What the Golf and What the Bat. They make games where you have one central mechanic, like in What the Golf it was you are essentially playing top-down mini-golf, but every single level does something very weird and silly with the mechanics that is unexpected, and as soon as they've run out of things to do with that mechanic, they throw it in the bin and throw something new at you. What the Car... You are playing as a car with human legs and a little goofy face on the front. And, you know, it'll start off with just run to the finish line, run along the road. Then it might be something like, now you've got a rocket on the back of you, and you have to go forward by doing little bursts of rocket jumps. Now, maybe you have too many legs, and you're sort of rolling as if you were a cylinder, but you're just legs around a car. Now you've got a bear riding on the top of you, and you've got to run around with your little legs and not let the bear fall off. It is really good for my ADHD to have... No level is more than about 30 seconds, and it's like, here's a silly little mechanic, and it'll play really well. And as soon as we run out of unique things to do, something new, something new, something new, all centered on here is a car with legs. I really enjoyed What the Golf. What the Bat was a VR game they did. I really enjoyed that. The demo for What the Car is substantial. There is a lot of demo in that demo.
Oh, cool.
If you're not sure if this game would be for you, the demo has a good, like, 20-25 minutes of things it throws at you, some of which won't be in the final game, but is just demo-specific stuff. And I'm like, that's great. Yeah. You gave me a good sense of what you're going to do with this without spoiling too much of the finished game, which is really nice. I also played a demo for a game called Schim, I think it's pronounced, Schim, where you are playing a little frog in like a shadow frog jumping between shadows as a little platformer game.
This one looks so cute.
I love the idea of it. I've been really excited for it when like demos have been available, or when trailers have been available. I've been waiting for a demo, and now that I've played the demo, unfortunately, I'm less excited. Because, like, in theory, the idea still works great. Like, hopping between shadows fundamentally is a fun mechanic. But the problem is, two things. One, it feels like there needs to be a little bit more magnetism to, like, if I jump to a shadow, I, like, land in it properly. Yeah. Like, it feels like it should just, like, magnet me a little more than it is. Yeah. But the bigger problem is the game feels very directionless. There's no overarching idea of what I'm trying to do or why.
Okay.
As you like, if you hold down a button, it'll go, your current objective is that water fountain over there. So you make your way to it and you hold down the button again, and it's like, okay, well, your next place to get to is that object over there. I don't know why I'm heading to them. I don't really have a sense of that. There's no, like, overarching idea of, like, what is my little shadow frog trying to achieve.
Yeah. Can that
and
be due to it being a demo?
Possibly, but even the demo's quite lengthy, and it feels like there should have been, like, at somewhere along that there should have been some kind of here's how this is getting you to somewhere.
Yeah.
But
this
beyond
is your
that,
motivation for why to do all this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little motivationless, and maybe that'll be different in the game, but the demo isn't selling it well in that regard. No. But also, the game has, like, specific rigid camera angles. Like, you can only turn the camera in 90-degree increments, and some of the level designs are just really not designed well for that, where it's really hard to get the camera in a good position where you can see where you are and where you're trying to get to, and the shadows that will get you along the way there. Yeah. Like, getting a good perspective of the level so you can actually do the platforming is sometimes really awkward.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, because I like the core idea of the game.
Yeah, it looks really, really cute.
Yeah, the demo just didn't click for me, and maybe that'll be different for other people. I wanted to like it more than I did. And the last main demo I'll talk about, I think, of the ones that I played, was one called Arevya. This one's really interesting. This is a puzzle game where the whole world is viewed from top down in a sort of grid system. And when you move your character, the world shifts in the direction you move your character.
Ooh.
So if you move yourself left or right, that entire row will shift left or right with you. If you move up or down, the column will shift up or down with you. And as well as moving your... Yeah, as well as trying to move yourself through the level, you're trying to rearrange parts of the level behind you to, like, put something onto a switch that it needs to be on, or move things out the way to make an opening so you can get through by shuffling the world around you. That one is fascinating. The demo feels really good to play.
That's
very quickly that demo sold me on, like, this is something special and I need to keep an eye on this one.
Yeah, because in my, like, just hearing that for me sounds like a cognitive barrier nightmare, because, like, you get so stressed and overwhelmed.
I felt the same. I worried that would be the same for me, because, like, I struggle with spatial orientation. I'm really bad at picturing several steps ahead, and therefore what I need to do to move things around that I'm not currently seeing having moved. I found it pretty simple.
That's good.
The puzzles are never too complicated where you're trying to move too many things around. At least in the demo, it feels like you could brute force your way through a puzzle if you needed to.
Okay.
And that made it less intimidating for me to jump into. Like, if I got truly stuck, I could just shuffle myself around and eventually get there, probably.
Yeah, okay, good. And, like, it's still, even though it might be a barrier, it's still fun to sort of sometimes go against that barrier and see, like, hey, can I still be able? And if the game has been made properly and they give you, like, a proper introduction and does it slow and steady, a lot of times things works out.
That's the thing. It's that kind of puzzle is often a barrier for me, but they introduced it gradually and slowly enough that it felt manageable, and that was nice. Yeah, other than that, the only thing I've been playing, I jumped back into Elden Ring this week, because... So, fun story, there's a DLC for Elden Ring, the big From Software go murder a bunch of very strong things game, called Shadow of the Erdtree, and I have been putting off loading up Elden Ring, because I completed that game like a year ago, and I never do this with From Software's games, but I was like, you know what, I'll start a new game plus, where I carry all my items over and I do a harder playthrough, and I got like 20 minutes into it and went, no, don't want to do that anymore. And then the DLC came out, and then I was like, oh no, you have to be a certain amount into a playthrough to do the DLC.
Yeah.
And I'm at the start of New Game Plus. I have to play an amount of the game to get to the DLC. Oh no. So I did a stream the other day where I got my Twitch chat to go, hello, how little of this game can I play to get to the DLC on New Game Plus? Like, is there a minimum path that if I go do, like, these things, I can just go straight to the DLC and pretend
I think
I'm not doing the rest of the other playthrough?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have done the same. I have, because I talked to somebody, not a content creator, and which is like, oh, they did not know that they had to do something. So I helped them, like, Google up, like, how to get her from, like, how to get to the start of the DLC. But Elden, and my house has been filled with Elden Ring this weekend as well. I got my fiance code, which I'm really, really appreciated. I wanted to give me a code. And then I said, like, hey, fiance, do you want to have fun? And he has been stuck on the sofa for like the whole weekend, and every time I come into the living room and I'm just like, are you doing okay? He has the biggest smile on his face and going like, yes, this is the perfect start of my holiday.
I'm glad. I don't know how I'll get on with the DLC, but I enjoyed the base game enough that I want to try and do it, because as much as From Software games are a lot, I really appreciated that Elden Ring was like pretty non-linear. Which meant if I got really stuck on a particular thing, I could just go away, do other stuff, get a bit over-leveled, and come back and do the thing I was stuck on later when I was a bit overpowered for it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, and I'm like, maybe the DLC will be okay if I can do the same sort of approach.
I saw somebody on TikTok say that they had given their niece Elden Ring to try, because she was really, really young, and she didn't like to fight. But
was this the one who went collecting flowers and things?
Yes, you could just run around. So she was just like running around in Elden Ring, just like the only thing she played was how far can I get without anything touching me?
Yeah.
And I was just like, yes.
And honestly, I really appreciate that Elden Ring lets you do that.
Yeah.
Like
such a pretty game. Holy hell.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Well, like, when I was doing that stream the other day, trying to, like, only do the minimum things I needed to get to the DLC, I was surprised how much I could just get on my horse and just run past things and go, nope, don't want to deal with that, don't want to deal with that, don't want to deal with that. Okay, I'll deal with this one boss. I'll summon in someone to help me, and I'll summon in my little ghost version of myself, and I'll use my cheaty little strategy where I spray poisonous gunk at them, and then I'll just stay away and let my summons help. And yeah, I got through it. Hooray!
Oh no, but it is fun. It has also been fun to see like people, because the DLC is hard. It's extremely hard. It's meant to be hard. This is from Soft. That is one of their pillars. And now to see like everybody who is regular in our comment section being angry at us when we just talk about accessibility.
Oh, why do you want accessibility? Why would you want it to be easier? Oh, it's meant to be hard. It's meant to be inaccessible. Watching those people try and review bomb it on Steam and go, oh, it's too hard now. It's not accessible to me anymore. I'm like, oh, if only someone had been advocating for, more people to be able to play the game, huh?
Yeah, it's just like it sort of is. There's a big old like, it's not a problem until it's a problem for me kind of deal.
Exactly.
And it is funny. I have to laugh when I see that. Of course, like I've said this a million times. Like, if a game wants to be hard, it's allowed to be hard. Yeah. There's a lot of other things we can look at when it comes to accessibility than just difficulty settings. So I don't care about that part. But it's also just a bit funny then when people that normally are in my, because these are like the people who are mean in some of my comment sections about accessibility are actually, they're not just like bots or faceless comments. They're like big content creators. Quite mean. I normally just delete them, but then now see that they like go on Twitter and go like, oh no, this is too hard. I'm just a bit like
here's my favorite thing about that as well, is I think a lot of them, like, they've never been in my position of, okay, this is hard, let me Google, like, who's worked out how to make this easier. They've never had to do that before.
Yeah.
Because, like, This DLC, I've done my research of I'm not particularly great at this, how do I get through it? And the trick is, the reason they're finding it so hard is because the DLC scales with your level.
Yeah.
So, like, all of that over-leveling you've done doesn't actually make you any stronger in the DLC.
No.
The way you get stronger in the DLC is there's a particular item that's in the DLC you can pick up, and those will make you more powerful.
Yep.
So you just go look up a map of where those are and run around not fighting things, grabbing those until you're a bit more powerful, and the DLC will probably be fine.
Yeah.
But these people are like, no, I've spent too many years telling people if you use walkthroughs and guides, you're cheating, and, like, I can't possibly Google
good.
how to make it easier for myself.
Yeah.
So I'll just sit here suffering and going, why is it not easier? It's like, just Google it. Just ask the internet for help.
That the rest of us do. No, but, like, it's been fun though. Like, seeing, I'm so happy for my fiance having, you can, like, see how happy he is. And it's a pretty game. Like, every time I am in the living room, it's just like, well, I'm watching the Elden Ring now. And I'm just like, well, at least this is pretty. And I call his horse or goat or whatever it is Leonard, and I think it's really, really fun. And it's such a pretty game.
It's such a gorgeous game.
Pretty.
It's nice to play a Souls game that isn't just grey and brown all the time.
Yes.
That has, like, actual colours in it.
Yes, and I'm going to make, like, a funny little TikTok, which is going to be like, since, like, if people don't know, normally when you get a code, you do something back for that. So I'm going to make a TikTok for this, and I'm going to make some fun, a little bit of a joke. So I'm a bit scared because the From Software community sometimes is a bit, they're scary to joke with. So I just have to cross my fingers that the joke, which is harmless, it's just fun. It's just like actually saying the game is good, and because I know from watching it, but it is scary.
Yeah, they're sometimes okay with a joke. I did one joke that the Souls community enjoyed once, and this was years ago. I think it was when Vine was still around rather than TikTok. But I made a fake cereal box for Dark Souls cereal, and I had a little jingle for it, and it was Dark Souls cereal, it's literally just glass. And, like, that went over well. That was my one time I got on well with the Dark Souls community.
Oh, that's good. No, but shall we talk about this week's news?
We should probably do that.
Yeah. In this week's news, Diablo 4 is getting a new navigation assist feature, Rebellion share Atomfall's accessibility info, Grant Stoner discussed hardware accessibility in gamer info, and Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics ban simplified controllers from competitive play. Yeah. Shall we start with the Diablo one?
Let's start with Diablo. So yeah, Diablo 4 is getting a bunch of cool new navigation assist features, which is really neat. Specifically, a bunch of which are really helpful for blind gamers, which is really exciting to see happen. So from the start, Diablo 4 is getting audio navigation assist features, which will allow blind gamers to use audio cues to help navigate to various things within the sort of the main hub area, but also throughout missions. A big part of how this works is that when you get a new quest in the game, it will now auto-pin a little dot on your map to, like, where that quest is and where you're trying to get to, which the game will then sort of help you navigate towards. But if you need other kinds of assist features for, like, if you struggle with keeping locations in mind while navigating, but you have usable vision, there's now an on-screen compass you can have access to, which will, again, show you where that auto-pin for quests is, for example. There's a bunch of new stuff in this demo, but those are the big exciting ones that are currently being tested in the public test realm. Between now and July 2nd, before eventually becoming public features. But yeah, these new features sound really cool.
It is. And it also sounds like it's crossing over to a bit of cognitive accessibility as well. If it will compass and stuff like that, and pinning and stuff, if you struggle with keeping your own course when you're not going from A to B. So that's cool.
Yeah, the compass is the one that for me would be really useful. I really struggle when games like don't have mini maps and things where I
Yeah,
have to pause, look at a map, remember what I saw, and keep that in mind while traveling the game world again.
yeah,
And being able to have something persistent that keeps me on track is really helpful.
100%. I struggle also
Yeah.
a lot of learning sort of in a game where I am. So now that I'm playing Poly and I played it like 30 hours first, now I feel comfortable to know where I'm going. But if not, they also have like that compass, like that Skyrim compass on top of the screen. And I always need to pin things. Pin things need to know so I know where to go. If not, I'm lost.
Oh yeah, couldn't agree more. Um, but yeah, to make a point of these, like the new audio navigation features, for example, like Diablo 4's been doing really well the last few months at making additions that have been like really praised by blind gamers. And
Yep.
it's really nice to see that continuing because on that sort of topic, Ross Miner, who is a blind gaming accessibility consultant, recently beat Diablo 4's campaign.
Yeah.
Beat the final boss, did the whole thing on stream. Talked a lot about like the screen reader support and how that helped with navigation and stuff. And yeah, it's really nice to see a game like this. To see yet more genres making an effort to be more blind accessible.
Yep. And it holds on to the fact that we said a lot of time the best time to start accessibility is when you start the game. The next best time to start accessibility is today. And they are showing that it is still possible. This game is out, but you can still add on to things. You can still make it playable for more people. And it's really, really cool.
Exactly. So well done, Diablo 4. Not a game that is really my genre, but I'm really happy every time I see updates about it.
Yes.
So yeah, next we've got Rebellion shares Atomfall accessibility information. We've talked about Rebellion before. We've talked about Carrie Waterton, who gave that wonderful speech at GA Conf. Uh, Atomfall has a bunch of really cool sounding stuff going on for it. So, quick run through of some of the features they've got going on. No button holds needed. No simultaneous button presses needed. You can snap aim to targets, so your reticle will sort of lock onto the nearest target, and even if the target moves, it will stay sort of locked onto them. Button remapping. You can use keyboard and controller in combination. Audio aim assist that's inspired by Sea of Thieves in terms of using audio cues to help aim at enemies. Looping audio cues for each enemy so you can hear where specific enemies are in 3D space based on audio and keep track of them. The game is colorblind by default without relying on colorblindness filters. There are subtitle and text scaling options that are improved since their last game, Sniper Elite 5. Waypoint markers, a compass on the HUD, and hints so that if you're trying to follow, like, clues as to where you're supposed to be going on a quest, you can just go, just tell me where I'm going, and the game will just, like, tell you in plain English where to go.
Yeah. Cool.
All of which are really cool features.
Yeah, and when you're reading this list, I'm just like, damn, 2024 is like they gear for vision accessibility or yeah, because there is so many things that people add now that like use audio to help to
Yeah.
yeah do that, and it's so cool. It's so cool.
It's
I like
it's
that.
really it is really nice that we are starting to see more genres try and overcome the hurdles present
Yeah.
in making themselves navigatable via audio cues.
Yes.
Because like I think that is like one of the biggest barriers in terms of game accessibility that exists, and it's one of the ones that's going to take the most work for the industry to get over. But it feels like there is excitement to try.
Yes.
And that is a great place to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. A little bit of information about Atomfall, like, outside of its accessibility information. It is set in the English countryside several years after the worst nuclear accident to ever happen on the British Isles. So, all fun and happy times there. Go do shooting in the radioactive fallout. But it looks gorgeous. It doesn't look like a wasteland. It's not how I picture like a Fallout game looking. It's like, oh, we've still got green and countryside. Just
I think that is cool. They've done something new, and I like knowing Rebellion. We know that they will deliver good accessibility. or at least if they can't, they will be honest about it, and they will be open about
Yeah.
it, and they will talk about it, and they will share what went wrong and how like they are so
Yeah.
open
They're,
about
they're
things like that.
yeah, they're very good at, if something doesn't work, they will iterate on it next time. Like, they're not gonna
Yes.
go, oh, but that didn't work, oh well,
Well,
we won't try
yeah,
again.
you didn't try hard enough. No, they were like absolutely really. Uh, they have. It seems like they have accessibility to one of their values, and they're absolutely keeping that as well, and it's fun to see, and I can't wait to see, because they also share a lot of the statistics after they have had a game going for a while, so I can't wait to see what more statistic we're going to get from this game, since we have this accessibility from the start.
Exactly. Couple of other bits we've got this week. This is just a plug for someone else's piece of work that's well worth going and checking out, but it's really exciting that it happened. Grant Stoner wrote a wonderful article about accessible gaming hardware for Game Informer magazine, which, if you're not in the United States where you can get this as a physical magazine, you can read the article in the online digital version of the magazine. Grant did interviews with Bryce Johnson, who was one of the co-inventors of the Xbox Adaptive Controller, and Dr. Caitlin Jones, who is the Senior Accessibility Project Manager, I believe, for the PlayStation Access Controller, and did this wonderful, like, 6-page, big, glossy print magazine article about accessible hardware. It's a really nice piece, and it's really good to see something like this high profile in like a big physical print magazine that's aimed at like a wide, not accessibility specific audience. Really, really happy for Grant being able to write this piece, and that it was given like a full 6 pages to really shine.
And it legitimizes it. It, like, when you do these steps, like when it gets in paper, like it just makes it so much more real. For also for other people, like it shows that yes, this is actually a valid and normal way of playing games, and it's so cool to see when we get things in more traditional way. It's like featured in more traditional ways, because often I feel like us in the accessibility community, we're just like in our own bubble, and sometimes and now and then new people comes in because they are disabled or they get disabled and they need help. But things like this showcase it for all gamers, and it sort of bursts that bubble a bit, and I'm so glad we need that.
Yeah, I was thinking about this week, and this is a little bit of a side tangent, but it's why I think that it's really important that over the years to come we see more companies talk about accessibility during Summer Games Fest week. Because, like, I know that, like, Global Accessibility Awareness Day is only, like, 3 weeks before Summer Games Fest, and I get why a lot of companies talk about stuff on that day instead, but I'm like, there is something really important about getting accessibility discussions in front of a general audience to normalize them, where people who aren't looking for accessibility will see that information and see those discussions.
And also, and also, like, I think a lot of people stops gaming, and then they goes years before they start gaming again, because they think there is nothing there for them. Because if they get an illness or get disabled, they don't know that this is a possibility. And when you have articles like this, everybody to read, then you have that little seed in their brain. So if something happened to them or somebody they know, they can go like, hey, wait a second, I read about this once. You can actually continue having your hobby even though something has happened. And I think that is powerful, it's important, and we need to make a game accessibility more common and normal, and normalize it.
And we got one last story, and this one's, like, a little disappointing, but I'm hoping that, like, if we talk about it, maybe there's time that it could be changed. So, one of the things that was announced during the recent Nintendo Direct that happened was Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics, which I've seen a lot of people in the fighting game community very excited about. A bunch of classic Marvel and Capcom fighting games that have been impossible to purchase for many years are all being put together in a collection. I know particularly people are excited about Marvel vs. Capcom 2 being available. And there is a feature that's really exciting on paper that then comes with a really annoying little downside. So, the collection has added the ability to do one-button specials. So if you struggle with fighting game combo inputs for doing special attacks, the game allows you to map a single button and or directional input to activate a special. This is very similar to what Street Fighter 6 does with its modern control scheme.
Yeah.
And that's great. ... until you learn that one-button specials are banned in ranked competitive matches, which means that, generally speaking, tournament scenes will use whatever the rules of the online ranked matchmaking as their tournament rules, which means that it's very likely that offline tournament play will ban one-button inputs. That is the standard the fighting game community tends to follow for how they set their rules up.
Yeah.
And that's really disappointing.
Yeah.
Because Street Fighter 6 very clearly demonstrated you can give people simplified inputs for complicated specials and have that not break your competitive scene.
Yeah.
And it's a, maybe you feel the need to do what Street Fighter 6 does and slightly weaken the attack damage if you're using the simplified inputs as a way to balance it. But, like, to not have any way to allow those simple inputs to be used in ranked play feels like a real step backwards from a big accessibility win just a few months back.
And I feel like there is so many other ways you can do this to still make it fair for everyone.
Yeah.
That isn't banning. Like, that should be the last step. There is ways of incorporating this. So, because I can see what some people are afraid of is that, hey, then will people then just do simplified button presses and then nobody else will do anything else, and then people who likes the complicated won't have any chance to win. But can't we just find a way to figure that out? Like, speedrunning does this brilliantly. They have tournaments for, you have different categories. So in speedrunning, you have 100% no glitches, 100% no glitches, but this one trick is allowed. You have 100% this and this is allowed. Like, there is so many things you can still add. You could still fix it instead of just going no.
Yeah, it's as I said before, like Street Fighter 6, their approach is in a couple of forms. You don't have access to every single special move on their simplified controls, because you've got a button plus 4 directional inputs, so if there's more than 4 specials, you have a slightly reduced set of moves available to you. And I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. I think it's about 5% damage reduction. So if you do a special move using the simplified input, it's about 5% weaker, but you didn't have to do the combo. And I'm like, honestly, I think that's a fair enough trade. If someone wants to learn that complicated input to squeeze like 5% extra damage out of an attack, versus someone who has an easier time executing it but does slightly less damage, cool. That's a reasonable trade-off that allows someone who needs simplified inputs to still play relatively competitively.
Yeah.
Like, there's ways to do it, just experiment. Have a go.
I remember when Nintendo came out with their ban of using third-party controllers. I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the Norwegian. Let me just make sure I'm saying this correctly. Yeah, the Norwegian Smash Bros. People who do competitive Smash Bros. In Norway. They came out with an official statement, and this is like the Norwegian organization, saying that they will not listen to Nintendo. They took a stand and said, in our tournaments, you're allowed to come as you are. This is not okay, and you are excluding a minority in our community, and we're not about this. Then we don't care. Then we are going to do our own thing. We don't care. In our thing, you're welcome. And I feel like I hope we're going to see that here as well, where people are going to say, you know what? I don't care.
I would really love it if offline tournaments took that stance and just went, we recognize that these are an accessibility feature, and the healthiest thing for our community is to let disabled people have access to accessibility tools.
And if you are listening to this and you are part of somebody who makes tournament, know that this power you have to say a stance are helping so many people. Yes, it change Nintendo or whoever else like to Capcom or Marvel change the game in the big picture. No, but you are showing maybe a picture of this will be something next time somebody thinking about doing something like this, they will think one more time if they actually should do it. And
agreed. Very well put. So yeah, I think that's all of the news for this week.
Yes.
Right, so before we finish up, we've got last week's question to talk about and this week's question to ask. So last week we asked, which game from Summer Games Fest are you looking forward to most? And we got an answer from Incompetent Hero over on YouTube, who said, Games Fest season was overall pretty decent.
Yep.
I'm so glad that Perfect Dark is coming together. The original hit such a perfect blend of espionage, sci-fi, and first-person shooter that seems to be the focus of the new one.
Yeah.
What about you, Arevya? Have you had any other things from Summer Games Fest that you're like, oh, this one I'm still feeling the urge to go, this was my big thing I want to talk about?
The Tiny Library and the Crab God game. I don't know, it's just something about water, being underwater, and I was just like, nah, it's something about that game, and I can't wait.
I think Crab God is out now, I think
it is, because I think I saw it in my mailbox being out, and I'm just like, this is going to be good. I can't wait.
Nintendo Direct happened since we last talked about this.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, and of all the things in that, look, I could have quibbles about Nintendo, and they're like, we need to have an excuse if we're gonna make the girl the hero, and like that has some weirdness. But like, I'm gonna put that aside for like just a second and go, Zelda is playable. We've got a top-down Zelda game with playable Zelda, echoes of wisdom. I'm so excited. Yes. We've had 2 playable. This has been a good year for people who want to play as Princess Zelda, because sure, we're getting Echoes of Wisdom, and Echoes of Wisdom looks fascinating. I'm so intrigued by this summoning things with your magic wand mechanic.
We're going to cheese every single puzzle.
Oh, yeah. But that's not the only time Zelda has kind of been playable this year. There was a game called RZ, The Jewel of Faramore, which was a sort of sequel to the CDI Zelda games, where you play as RZ, who's totally not Princess Zelda. And that was really fun as well. It's a good year for I want to play as the princess in a Zelda game.
I can't wait to the Zelda game. Like, I was just... I streamed the Direct, and when I saw Zelda come up, I just started like screaming like, yes, really loud. And I said, this is the year for the girls, let's go.
It is. Heck yeah, no boys allowed this year. What are the big Nintendo games I can think of this year? Princess Peach Showtime, Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, we got Metroid Prime 4 coming in early next year. Nintendo's all about the girls. Boys not allowed. Nintendo's not for boys.
I can't wait for Mario Party though. If you have followed me for some years now, you know I'm a big Mario Party fan. Like, it's legit why I started cosplaying Peach, because I did it. So when October rolls around, I am going to be in full cosplay from October to the year out. Because first we have Mario Party, and then we have Zelda, which I also have a cosplay for.
We should find an excuse to do a stream or something together for Mario Party, because I love Mario Party too, and it's good online multiplayer. Particularly Super Mario Party, my favorite Mario Party in years, and I'm glad that they're continuing the Super Mario Party chain of them.
Yeah, and I'm just so glad, because I saw it was without the worst Mario Party game I know is the one where you have to be in a cart together.
Yes.
That one ruined everything, and I was so angry. I didn't play it. I was just like, no, I'm offended. Yeah. I cannot actually ruin for people. I am heartbreaking. So I can't wait, and it's going to have a 20 people 20.
Yeah, the Fall Guys Battle Royale mode.
I can't wait. There is going to be weeks and weeks and weeks of me dressing up as Zelda every single week and playing Mario Party with people. I can't wait.
Yes. So do you want to ask our question for people for next episode?
Yeah, and I wrote this, and it's just because I am so hyped for summer. So I was just like, which games give you summer vibes? Which game gives you summer vibes?
That was summer vibes is such a broad concept. I love the question, and I'm gonna have a think, and I'll have an answer when we have our next episode. But it's been bubbling in my head since you wrote it in our little document.
If you have any common question stories, or you want to like share what is your summer vibe, what game is your summer vibe to us, you can comment it below on YouTube. Or you can send it to controlaccesspodcast@gmail.com and get a chance to get them to read out on the podcast next time.
Look at you remembered the email.
I did. Yeah. It's not like I have it written up here now.
So yeah, I think that's everything for this week. Where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me under Arevya everywhere except on TikTok because somebody stole my name, and there I am, Arevya Gaming. Highly would love if anyone can go in and take a look at my latest YouTube about the Byowave controller. I did a lot of work. It was a month of a lot of work, and I'm so proud of it. And I'm so new to YouTube, so I'm still like, this feels good. So I hope people can do that. And where can I find you, Laura?
I'm at Laura K Buzz pretty much everywhere on the internet. Whatever you might find a person on, I'm Laura K Buzz there.
Yeah.
I've got a video going up on Friday this week, an accessibility episode that is about the disappointment of more studios not bringing up accessibility during Summer Games Fest week itself, and sort of why that might be and how we might change that in the future, and sort of a conversation around those kind of things. So look forward to that. I think that's everything for this episode, so thank you very much everyone for watching, and goodbye.
Bye.